law and developing the courage to start speaking with them about it to help change their mind about what they're doing can be very difficult because it's deeply rooted into the human psyche, but more than that, it's actually rooted into the physiology. You know, these functions become like addictive patterns because of how they work in the brain. When you're forging an emotional bond with somebody, you know, the limbic brain is sending certain kinds of chemicals into the body. You become very used to that and dependent on those substances. That's why you miss someone when they're not around. It's like a form of withdrawal. You know, these chemicals are like drugs. They are mood altering. They are body altering. They are released from the limbic brain. They go into the bloodstream. You become used to them, like any other substance that you continuously would put into the body. So someone becomes identified with that feeling when they're thinking about or relating to another person in their family. And then it becomes, oh, I don't want to logically think about what they're doing. I don't care about that. I'm just going on feeling and emotion here. It doesn't make a difference what they do. And once again, this whole idea that family bond is the strongest makes us look the other way when one of our family members is doing something that's wrong, meaning intentionally harming someone else. And it doesn't even matter whether they think they're doing the right thing. This is another defense that's constantly used against the dominators. They think they're doing the right thing. The universal natural law does not care whether you think you're doing the right thing. This is another thing people need to emotionally get over. Gravity does not care one iota whether you don't understand it, folks, and neither does behavioral natural law. It's going to bring you what you have acquired as a result of your action, whether that comes from stepping off the cliff because you didn't know about gravity, or whether it comes from deliberately trying to taking someone else's natural law rights because, quote unquote, I didn't know it was the wrong thing to do. Natural law doesn't care. It doesn't work like your mind or my mind. It doesn't have human emotions. It is a law that works unwaveringly, 100% of the time, the same way. People have a difficult time wrapping their minds around this. And it's part of they don't want to accept that there's anything that works like that and that they're subject to it. You are a slave to causality, to natural law. That's how this universe was built. The end. You cannot do anything about that. You can learn how this law operates and then decide to live in harmony with it or not. That's it. They're your choices. It's the ultimate Hegelian dialectic, if you will, but it's the one that is real. So in that regard, do you really have free will? Hey, maybe not. Because there's only natural law, which binds you. And you have a choice to make. It's your free will decision, but you're the one who makes it. Do I acknowledge this law that is in place that happens to bind me here in this physical universe while I'm in it? And do I want to work within the parameters of that law in which I don't create suffering for myself, in which I can create harmony and order and wonder and beauty and peace and anything I could possibly even dream or imagine? Or do I want to constantly buck the flow of that natural law? I want to believe that I'm God somehow. I could do whatever I want with no consequences, and I'm just going to create disharmony, suffering, endless suffering, and chaos for myself. See, ladies and gentlemen, you could ignore reality all you want, but you cannot escape the consequences of ignoring reality. That's what's not possible. It is possible to ignore reality. You're an utter fool to do it. And because you happen to be uncomfortable with what that reality is, you don't want it to be that way. That's why most people won't even look at natural law. I don't want it to be that way. Well, once again, you're not the creator of the universe. Who cares what you want? You need to learn what is and start getting your head around the concept that you need to accept the way certain things that weren't created by you are. They weren't created by any humans. They're just the natural function of this domain that you don't have a say over. This is why in many secret societies or in many mystery tradition schools, people who don't believe that there's a higher power than man won't even be dealt with. And I understand why that is. I get it. Because they think they can get it to make up what the truth is based on their likes or preferences or their emotions. I don't like that. That bothers me, that idea. I'm not even going to look into whether it's true or not. I'm not even going to look into whether that happens to be the conditions I'm surrounded by and surrounded with and that I'm binded by or not. I have no care to look into any of that because that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like it, so therefore it can't be true. Which brings me to the next couple of slides. I call that the arbiter of truth syndrome. I get to make up what truth is based on how it makes me feel. And here's the flip side of that coin is when people hear the truth, they react in different ways based on how it makes them feel. Not on whether it's accurate, not on whether it can actually be verified, whether it's true, the veracity of the information. No. I'm going to judge it based on how it makes me feel. So if I don't like how this person looks or the sound of their voice, or if that information's making me uncomfortable, or I don't like the way he presented it, or he left this little tiny detail out that I think is important, even if the rest of what he's saying happens to be true, I'm throwing it all out. This is such an immature way of seeing reality and coming to any conclusions of what is. But unfortunately, this is where most people are at. And this is a symptom of emotional mind control. Many people, in the freedom and patriot movements are under emotional mind control. And I'm going to give you an example in a way how I'm not under that kind of mind control or heart control. When people hear people shouting or screaming something or saying it in a harsh or abrasive way, they want to think it isn't true. The role that they're fulfilling in the creation of the dark New World Order. That was the first part of this. The second part of this has to do with human perception and how people want to perceive reality versus accepting reality as it is, or even being able to see it at all as it is. This is one of the biggest problems that humanity has. And many people fall into the trap of, if I don't like the way the information is being presented, it's not true. So I put two images up here to emphasize this form of mind control, which is heart control. It's more about controlling someone at an emotional level than it is controlling them at a mental level, because they're not thinking with their mind at all. The mind is being removed from the process, and they're being controlled from the feelings of the body. That's why this is a powerful form of control that most people never even see or understand how it works. I'll be the first person to admit my voice isn't the most pleasant to listen to. Never thought that it was. I don't like listening back to the things that I do because I don't like the sound of my own voice, as many people don't. That's a common thing. But when I do listen back to try to see what am I doing right, can I improve upon, I generally feel I do a good job. I listen to the concepts I present. I think I present it in a clear way, in a way that could be easily understood by anybody. I don't overcomplicate it. And I think I do a reasonably good job to explain these concepts. So I gauge myself not on how I sound, because I don't like the sound of my voice when I listen back to it. I take a look at what did I actually say. And then I'm going to be honest about, did I do a good job getting that idea across? That's it. Doesn't matter whether I don't like to hear it. And this is, again, something people don't even know that they're in sometimes. I'll give another example, okay? Manly P. Hall, old man before, he died, I believe, at the age 93 or 94, something like that. I think it was 93. But he lectured on the circuit into his 90s. And when you listen to an older gentleman speak in a monotone, very slow pace, deliberate, it can be taxing. It can be something that is, wow, that takes willpower to actually sit there and pay attention to that, because let's face it, it's boring. Literally, it's something that's not really very exciting or holds you in rapt attention. But the information that he's giving is like, whoa. This guy is a beacon of light, Well, what he's exploding onto the world with what he put forward over his years. So I'm not paying attention to the sound of his voice or whether it makes me bored or even sleepy. I'm listening to what he's saying. And again, if it's super harsh, we could bring Alex Jones up as an example. People call him a blowhard. They say, oh, he's super over the top at what he does. None of that matters. All that matters is what he's saying accurate regarding the control system. So, in image number 6 here, I have all these people shouting and looking upset, and they're yelling right at you. They got their finger up in your face, and they're all saying the same thing. 2 + 2 = 4, which is unequivocally, eternally, definitively, absolutely true, and can never be any other way. That is a mathematical, natural law reality. It doesn't matter how anyone says it to you. They can say it in the most pleasing, wonderful tones that sound like angels singing. Or they can be a blowhard yelling through a megaphone. All irrelevant. The only thing that is relevant is it true? Was that accurate? Does that reflect reality? Image number 7 shows the exact opposite of this. The news broadcasters, our wonderful friends in the mainstream media, they're always talking in such pleasing tones. And now the news. Take it away, Ellen. Sure, Jim. And then they're going to spout the most absurd, ridiculous propaganda that anyone has ever heard, and most people are going to gulp it down. They're going to shovel it in with a spoon, they're going to slurp it up with a straw, and they can't get enough. They can't get it in fast enough. More, please. More, please. Yes, I'll have another. Because they like hearing what they want to hear, and they like it being told to them in sweet, pleasant tones, even if it's total bunk. All of these people are telling people every day that 2 + 2 = 5. And it doesn't matter how sensuously it's put. It doesn't matter how nice the female anchor dresses up and does her hair and sits, with her legs crossed and looks very attractive. It doesn't matter how much humor they interject into it, how they smile at the camera. It's always going to be nonsense. But many people will buy it just because it's told to them like rocking a baby to sleep. In those soft and pleasant tones. They're never going to even go out and check whether it's accurate. They're going to take it at face value because they're gauging information not with the human mind. They're gauging information through how it makes them feel in the body. And that's what emotional mind control is. And this is the same thing that happens when you say, you know what, your father may have done great things in his role as a father, but in his role as a cop, he abused people's rights all day long, whether he knew it or not. Because he wasn't following natural law. He wasn't following his conscience. He was following human orders. And what happens? Boom, emotional reaction in the body. That makes me feel bad because I remember the emotional connection I had to my dad as my dad. And now I'm going to react to the truth of that statement by getting angry. I'm not going to look into the statement's veracity, whether he actually did violate natural laws in his role as a police officer. I'm just going to react to the teller of that information, to the bringer of that information, because he touched a nerve with me because I have a deep emotional connection to Daddy. You understand how emotional mind control works and how dangerous it is, and how it is keeping things the way they are in this reality. Let me give you an example of how I will respond to new information. I'll go out and check whether it is accurate. Okay, so I happen to still eat eggs. I'm a vegetarian, but I eat eggs. Continuing with emotional mind control. We have to understand first, it doesn't matter how information is delivered. We need to get over that. That is part of the calcified human ego, is believing that what our perceptions of the messenger are is directly related to the quality or veracity of the information. And nothing could be farther from the truth, because you could get total, absolute truth from a homeless, destitute individual lying in the street in a cardboard box. And that happens to be his situation. He may even be drunk. He may be slurring. And he could give you wisdom. And yet you could go to the executive of the board, way up in an ivory tower someplace in the middle of the middle of a city, in the boardroom, and that could be the devil incarnate, basically, in a $10,000 three-piece suit, telling you exactly the opposite of the truth. It doesn't make a difference what the truth looks like or sounds like. You need to do the work to definitively verify the information. That's it. That's part one of this. Part two is people have such difficult concepts with the idea of definitiveness, definite, absolute, all one way, extreme. These are things we've been conditioned from birth to think, oh, those are bad things. That's bad. You know, the middle of the road is the best. Shades of gray is how everything is. Everything is relative. Relativism. Never really look at whether something has an objective reality that is independent of my perceptions of it. And yes, there is such a thing. No, everything is not independent, dependent on perceptions. Truth is not dependent on your perception, ladies and gentlemen. If you think that's the case, you have bought into some bunk when it comes to relativistic science regarding the observer effect. That isn't how that's intended to be understood. There is such a thing as objective reality that is independent from my perception of it. That exists. It's called truth, and it can be known. And it is not shades of gray. Truth is not shades of gray. Truth is all one way. There's a bumper sticker for you. Truth is not shades of gray. It's all one way. This is another thing people under emotional mind control cannot comprehend, because they want it to be the way they've been told that it is, that they've come into a state of comfort with, that it elicits a certain emotional reaction in the body. Oh, it's not all one way, it's relative. That's comforting.